The bottom line of overcoming fear is to have faith, right? The opposite of fear is faith. If I've got faith, I will not fear. When children are in their mother's arms, they're not afraid. Doesn't matter what's going on. There's a beautiful story that Pujya Sadhviji loves to tell of a young boy on a boat, and the boat is capsizing, and everybody is rushing to get into lifeboats, and, there's this young boy just sitting there very calmly, and someone says to him, "Aren't you afraid? This boat is sinking. Like, you don't know how to swim. We're all going to drown." And the boy says, "Oh, well, see, that's my mom over there. And mom will take care of me." And just that beautiful faith is the answer to fear. However, that's a broader answer, meaning in a general way, we need to bring more faith into our life. The more faith that you can bring in your life, the less you will fear. Wherever you fear, it's a symbol to you, a signal to you, there's some lack in my faith in this place. Otherwise, I wouldn't fear. And so what I do on a really, really practical level, I come from a background, a family background, a societal background that's very rooted in anxiety. It's just very, very, very anxiety prone, much more anxiety prone than an Indian spiritual community. And so I was brought up really with the sort of everything's an emergency experience, which obviously leads to a lot of anxiety. And what I have found on a personal level, because I decided at a very young age, I can't live like this. Long before I had come to India, long before I had come on a spiritual path, I knew there is no way I can live with this level of anxiety. And as I've come onto a spiritual path, it's bolstered this. And for me, what my practice is whatever I'm worried about in that moment, I say to myself, what is the worst that can happen? So let's say, for example, we are driving to the airport and we get stuck in a traffic jam, okay? Now I've calculated how long it's going to take us to get to the airport, but I hadn't calculated for that much traffic. So now you're stuck in traffic and you are nervous. You're going to miss the flight. So I say to myself, in a case like that, what is the worst that happens? Worst that happens is you miss the flight. Okay, and then I accept it. I say, fine, forget it. Assume in your mind you've already missed the flight. Don't try to tell yourself, no, it's okay, you'll make it. God will take care of you, because God is not worried about whether you miss your flight or not. I mean, really, we do things, oh, God have mercy, I shouldn't miss the flight. Like, really, God is so worried about if you miss your flight or not? This is not the stuff that mercy and grace is about. Mercy and grace is about our awakening, our connection with God, our connection with the truth, our connection with the light. Mercy and grace does not bother itself with whether we miss a flight or not. Because if we do, then clearly we were supposed to miss it, because whatever we're supposed to learn is going to come through missing the flight. So in my mind, I say, okay, fine, you've missed it. Just assume you've missed the flight. Then I say, okay, what's the worst now that happens? Well, you missed the event then. You were supposed to go, you were going to speak at an event, you had cut it very close. If you miss that flight, you will miss the event. Okay, you've missed the event. Then what's the worst that happens? They all hate you. The organizers hate you. The audience hates you. Everybody who was counting on you to be there hates you. Now again, of course, you could do the opposite. You could come in and say, oh, of course they're not going to hate you. Everybody understands. But I have found on a personal level that really what works best is assuming the worst. Because here's where you go from there. What you find is, if you allow yourself to take that every and then, to its absolute worst case scenario, you know where they all end up? Every one of your fears, every one of your anxieties, every one of your worst case scenarios ends up in one place. You know where that place is? Then you die. Take any fear you have, and it will become, then you die. Or then a loved one will die. And either the fear is that the loved one should not die, or the fear is if the loved one dies, I will be alone. But death is always the bottom line of every fear. You're afraid you're going to lose your job? Okay, well, why? Well, because then I won't have any money. Okay, then. So then you're homeless. Okay, then. I will get murdered. Then you die. Right? I mean, take anything you're afraid of. Allow yourself, at least in your own mind, to follow it to its most fearful outcome. And I guarantee you every one of them will be, then you die. Whether you die because you were murdered, or you die because everybody hates you and you're so humiliated that you just disintegrate. Whether you die of hunger or whatever it is. All of our fears end up with, then you die. And you know what? You're going to die. And so, living with the awareness that I'm going to die, ironically, is actually what I have found on a very practical level, the best antidote to anxiety. Because everything that I'm nervous about ends up with, then I die. Which means that on some level, I'm living in an illusion that if I can prevent this thing from happening, I'm not going to die. Well, I am going to die. If not today, if not tomorrow, if not the day after, someday. Someday, one of those things I'm worried about is going to end in me dying. So I might as well learn to accept my own imminent death as quickly as I possibly can. Dealing with that is the key to overcoming anxiety, I have found. Because once you are no longer afraid of death, really deeply not afraid of it, not the, well, I'm done anyway, life is hopeless, and, so I might as well die. Not that. But really the awareness of, I am soul. The lack of fear of death that comes from knowing who I really am isn't in this body. Who I really am has had a body before, will have a different body after. This body's going to go. Once you really have that awareness, then there's nothing else left that can scare you. Because loss of money, loss of prestige, loss of love, the thing that makes all of those so scary is the pain that we feel, the sense of loss of self that we feel. It literally feels like I will die. Well, if you already know you're going to die, and you're already okay with that, because you know that you're not that which dies, well, so you're also obviously not your reputation. You're not what people think about you. Okay, you didn't make the function. They all hate you. The entire city of Delhi hates you because you didn't make the function, right? I mean, why only limit it to the couple hundred people in your event? Go all out. Everybody, forget, the whole world hates you. Okay, then what? Then you're alone. Right? Everybody hates you. Then you are alone. Well, you know what? We're alone anyway. Whether people love us or people hate us, ultimately we are alone. We come into the world alone, we go out alone. And ultimately the relationship, the connection that is the one that keeps us from the deepest experience of aloneness. Because you can surround yourself with people, but at the end of the day, you're alone. Even if there's 5 people in your bed, deeply internally, you are alone. But you are there. You are there. And that you which is there is whole and full and divine. This is why on spiritual practices, spiritual paths, there's such an emphasis, even if it's just temporary, on silence, on solitude. Because yeah, it's not fun to be alone. Really alone. But what it does is it forces you into an experience of, okay, there's no one else around, have to look within. Who is that one within? How can I make that relationship? And so allow yourself in your own mind to just follow your fears to their absolute worst case scenario, and then it's going to take you to know exactly what you need to work on in life. Is it fear of being alone? Of ego death? Is it fear of physical death? Is it fear of losing your loved ones? Whatever your worst case scenario that all of your fears take you to, that's the place that you need to work. Don't try to deal with the individual fears, deal with the base of them. And then the individual ones will dissipate on their own.